The project for today is to repair the turn indicators on my Suzuki GSX S 125. I suspected that the problem was probably a failed flasher relay, but the challenge I faced was finding it on the bike. I expected it to be near the battery and fuses under the seat, but it's not. What made it harder was that I had no idea what it looked like. I was expecting a conventional automotive relay, but it actually looks like this. And just as a spoiler alert, this relay is actually under the fuel tank. So to get at it, I removed all the plastic fairings from both sides. I also took the switch apart to check that the switch was okay. Just there, and also the fuses underneath the seat. The purpose of the video is mainly to show the location of the flasher unit. The sequence of the video is pretty disorganized because I started at the point where the problem was fixed and then covered how to put everything back together. This is a Suzuki GSX S 125. The blinkers, turn indicators have stopped working altogether. So I've decided to check whether the flasher relay is working, and it's underneath the fuel tank right there. With the ignition turned on, we should get power to the positive side, which we do. So there's power going into the flasher unit. I took the flasher unit to my local auto electrician, who said that it was working fine. But I didn't really believe him, so I've decided to check it. I've bridged across the two terminals on the leads, and lo and behold, the lights work. So that proves that the flasher unit is not working. I bought a new flasher relay at 2-pin, and I've glued the rubber mount off the old one onto it. Just put some electrical tape around it to hold it in place while the glue dries. And you can see maybe on there's two terminals. One is L and the other is P, and the one with no terminal is X. L is the load, so that goes to the lights. P should be the indicator to tell you that your blinkers are on, and X is the supply from the battery. So this has only got two terminals, so I've put the battery onto P and the turn indicators onto L, and that seems to work. I was going to use a genuine Suzuki part, but they don't have any. It takes 6 weeks to get it. Presumably it's got to come from Japan. My original thought was that the problem might be with the fuses. There's a main fuse under here, and then secondary fuses here, but I knew that it couldn't be the fuses because the fuse for the blinkers is also the same fuse for the headlight and the horn. This is the relay for the headlight. I don't know what this one is. That might be for the starter, but I checked those by reversing them, and that didn't make any difference. So now I've got to put it all back together again. It's possible to get this relay out without lifting the fuel tank, but I lifted it anyway because I didn't even know where the relay was. So now reassemble everything. There are 2 bolts at the front of the tank that mount it, and then at the back of the tank there's another 2 bolts, and it sits on this rubber mount. I haven't ridden the bike for about 4 months due to a licensing issue. When I used it last, the flasher unit was fine, but apparently it didn't like being left unattended, decided to stop working. That's those. Now we'll just tighten up the bolts at the front. At the front, I've actually forgot that there's a bracket that goes on here first, so that slips in there, and then the bolts go in, and that mounts the some of the shrouding. Oop, not lined up. That's better. So we'll just tighten those up. This piece goes on here. There's a bolt at the top, goes in here, and there's this piece here that fits into there, and then there's a piece that goes across the top that ties it together. So we'll take this bolt out. That can go in there, and you've got the same piece on the other side. This is the cover around the ignition switch, so it sits in there. You got this here and one on the other side, and they fit down into these holders that hold that in position. The next piece to go on is this side panel, and you should be aware that there are these 2 knobs here that push into the rubber there and there. They're secured in those rubber mounts. Apart from that, you've got a bolt. Let's get this in the right spot. You've got a bolt through there. That one mounts the cover that goes over the top. You've got a bolt here, one here, and at the back there's one through here and 2 right at the very back. So we'll get that mounted up next. The next part that goes on is the cover at the front, and this one mounts with a rubber mount there and a bolt that goes through here, through this one, and there's one more that mounts at the back there, and a rubber mount here. So 2 rubber mounts, one here and one there. The plastic parts are also held together with these clips. Go in like that, push it down, and then push the centre bit in. Now to get them out, there's probably a special tool, but I just use 2 screwdrivers and levered them up on each side till they popped out. For the long plastic strip that goes down the side, there is one hole underneath which is easy to miss. Right there. The cover that goes on here has a clip there and on the other side, which fits into these holes here and here, and then the lock mechanism fits behind the metal plate. So to get it in, you can put it in one side first, put the clip underneath, but to get it in the other side, at least one side has to be loose, pulled to the side so that the other piece can fit in, and then it can be pushed up into the right position on either side. The lock mechanism, I've put it back incorrectly. The lock mechanism needs to be on the right hand side of the little plate. Get it. It needs to be on the right hand side of that plate there, or it won't work. So I'm going to have to just slip this off again and put it back on the other side. I've put a piece of plastic to hold the striker in the right position while I push the lock mechanism into place. The rear seat has an opening at the back right there which fits onto here, and then the spike here goes down into that hole there. So the rear seat goes on by holding it a little bit behind, pushing it forward, and it clicks in. The main seat has 2 hooks underneath this piece at the front, and there's a screw there and there. To get at those screws, you have to lift up the cushion of the seat a little bit like that. So now it's all back together and the blinkers work. So all in all, a long but successful mission.